Okay, just waiting for this to connect on YouTube. It takes a moment. So let's see who pops in this morning. Okay, probably going to hear some of that preface here, but good morning. Welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and this is the first time I am doing this live stream on Instagram. I'm sorry, on YouTube. Wow, that was really that was interesting. Yeah, so this is a little bit weird for me and how I'm doing it in terms of what I can see, what I look like. I'm looking at myself on YouTube. Hopefully, enough people got the message that this is the thing. Because I tried to actually set this up on Instagram as well this morning, but it didn't. But basically, what I have to do is I have to set up an Instagram session live at the same time on my desktop, and then I have to copy everything into this desktop. It's very confusing. And I'd have to do that every single day. I'd have to get a new stream key. And so if I want to do it from my phone, if I did everything from my desktop, maybe it would be easier, but I prefer to use my phone camera because my other camera is, I don't know, maybe I'll try that at some point. But still waiting to see who signs on this morning. But I will just begin by saying today is Groundhog's Day. So we are, so this is definitely a, it's weird. I had this morning, actually, I just need to like turn this away from me because I'm looking at it and it's distracting me. I had to, today's Groundhog's Day. And even though the Groundhog's prediction is probably right, he doesn't have a very good accuracy rate with that. People who, and oh, good morning. And I'm seeing things popping in now. Okay, I'm seeing Kathleen is on. I'm seeing Suda is on. I'm seeing Alex is on. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see all of you guys. Glad to see that you're in the chat. Fantastic. Good morning to all of you. First, I'm sitting here. I've been sitting here kind of like hemming and hawing because I'm like, is this actually working for people? So yeah, so I'm very glad that this is working. And hello. So yeah, so now we are here, and again, you're just joining. Obviously, this is something I was doing on Instagram since last May, but since a lot of people are moving off of Meta, I thought, okay, let's move this over to YouTube. Interestingly, now this is supposed to show me your chat comments, and I can see them over. I have my other window open over here. But I'm not actually seeing them on Restream, which is interesting because I think I'm supposed to. And Leela, good morning, hello. And so yes, and and okay, and we've got some interesting people jumping into the chat. Okay, so in any case, today, so today was Groundhog's Day, and we still don't know. I guess Punxsutawney Phil, if you follow him in this country, then Phil is, makes his prediction, and I don't know if anybody's actually seen the prediction yet, but the, what do you call it? But again, I think they said it was going to be 7:26 a.m. and I did not, obviously I'm getting ready to go live, so I didn't actually see it. But I remember I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, because obviously if the groundhog sees a shadow, it's 6 more weeks of winter. If he doesn't see a shadow, then we have an early spring. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, and Azrael is in my head going, what is this? What is this business about a groundhog? It's kind of funny. Oh, okay. So we need some moderation here on these. We've got some people who, we need to remove. And so, yeah, this is the one thing about this. So, yeah. So anyway, we've got some people who are jumping in, which I think that's one of the hazards of YouTube live streams is that kind of a thing. You've got people who jump in who are not wanted on here. So. In any case, that's something I have to sort out moderation for that. Anyway, apologies, guys. I feel like this live stream is a little bit diffuse this morning. But anyway, so it was just really funny this morning that Azrael was just kind of like Okay. He just thought it was just very odd that we would look at that this groundhog thing would have any kind of weight with people. But I am curious to know if anybody actually sees what his prediction is, you can pop it into the live chat, because I was thinking about that this morning. Yesterday was Imbolc, of course, which is Brigid's day, and so Brigid is obviously my namesake in terms of actually who I'm named for is Brigid goddess rather than Brigid saint, but but so Imbolc actually represents midwinter. So technically speaking, the reason this all comes up around this time is because we are at the middle of winter. This is midwinter. This is this is literally when we're at the halfway point. And I don't know about you guys, but I know this is the point at which I start worrying about when I want spring to come at this point. I'm kind of not, I mean, I know we have the whole month of February, but I'm kind of not into snow and all that stuff at this point. I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking about spring. So we'll see what actually comes of that. So so the other thing I was thinking about this morning, because obviously I always start, as you guys know, with a reading, and I try to figure out like what our topic should be for the day. And one card that continually came up was participation, okay, which is the Four of Wands in the Osho Zen deck. And it's and the idea, and I think this is something that has come up repeatedly in these morning coffees, and the idea of and Leela said he did see his shadow. Oh darn, 6 more weeks of winter. Okay, thank you, Leela. And good morning, Jeremy. It's so that's good. It's good to know what the outcome is. I don't like it, but given the fact that he's usually wrong most of the time, no worries. New processes take time, is what Alex is saying. Yeah. So participation. This came up for me a lot this morning, along with the 10th house card. Okay, I always want to say 10 of Pentacles. When I look at it in the astrology deck, it looks like the 10 of Pentacles, but it's actually more like a clock. And okay, so what does that have to do with? It has to do with the way in which we, it has to do with the way in which we give back to the world. Okay, it has to do with not just what we're doing for ourselves and our own goals. Unless you want that, yeah. Let's see. And Joanne, you made it on. Good morning. Yeah, I'm gonna have to add moderation to this one because there's some people who just, I think that's just kind of a thing that they do. So back to participation. Participation is, the question is, how do we participate with others? We talk about setting goals for ourselves. We talk about our financial goals. We talk about our job. We talk about the way in which we will, we will talk about the way in which what we want to set for ourselves, what we want for our future in terms of our homes, in terms of our own family and so forth. When we start getting into the 10th house kind of stuff, we are actually talking about something that is outside that realm. We're talking about what do we give back to the world? And also we've been hearing a lot about this in connection to creativity. And then a lot of people are saying, okay, so you're asking me to be creative and I'm not a creative person. Maybe I don't paint, I don't write, I don't do things. Or you think that if you do those things, or if you enjoy those things, that somehow they're not really, they're not important, right? They're not as important as, the job you go to every day or something like that. And so I feel like, I just feel like it's, when you have this kind of a situation, then the question then becomes like, what is it that we have to give back? So the question that I actually had for the cards this morning was, what actually, if we're going to talk to people about, okay, it's time for you to participate, it's time for you to do your authentic thing, it's time for you to give back to the world. I said, so how do you approach talking about that? Because oftentimes you say that to people and people don't exactly know what that means. We also tend to think, when we think about the world at large, I think we also think about it in terms of what we are what we are giving back, like, okay, what our obligation is to society. That's the word that I'm thinking of here, is obligation. What are we obliged to do? And the reality is that we are not obliged to, it's not something that should come out of a sense of obligation per se. And that was the one thing that was key in what came up this morning. Okay, we're going to report this individual. Let's just, we'll just report. Okay. And yeah, okay. So now we've just got, we've got somebody in here who's just being annoying. So yeah, I have to remove them myself, unfortunately. So, okay. So moving on, yeah. So what we've got, this situation is where we are trying to figure out what our creativity is. We're trying to, determine what it is that that we give back to the world. And the key thing is, I think a lot of times we think of it in terms of our duty or responsibility. Like, this is in terms of sacrifice. And that seems to be the thing that was coming up this morning that was key, that was different. It's not about making sacrifices. It's not about doing one's duty. Because when we do something out of a sense of duty, we're generally not, well, we may not be doing it from a place of love. We may be doing it because this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is what I have to do. And that's where the difficulty comes in. A lot of times we have a kind of a guilt in ourselves where we feel like we have to, Joanne's saying this is why I dislike YouTube. Yeah, it's definitely a drawback here. So we've got this, what is it? What are we doing that we actually want to do, that we actually want to contribute? And I think too, this may have to do with why we are asked to move from the heart space. Okay, because in the heart space, we are, it's something that we're doing because we want to do it, not because we expect to get anything in return. Like, the act of doing it is kind of the joy in and of itself. So I think when it comes to what we give to the world, that's really where we want to be looking, rather than something that is grandiose, right? Rather than something that is, like, oh, I'm gonna go out there and I'm going to, I don't know, that's something that we do is single-handedly going to, realign our political or our economic system or anything like that. We often tend to think that because we're working on a very small scale, that what we do doesn't really matter. And of course, you've all probably heard the whole thing about, 1,000 candles can light a darkness, right? So if you have, 1,000 people who are doing their own thing and are happy in doing their own thing and happy in being who they are, then it's, and if you're happy with that kind of a thing, then that is the thing that you have to offer. One way of conceiving it, I was looking at the Gateway Oracle this morning, and okay, so one of the cards that had come up was one that had to do with, it's called Making a Difference. That's the name of the card. And the Making a Difference card just says, like, you can like go in and, Joanne says you should be able to block them through Restream as well. Okay, good. Yeah, actually, they're not showing up on Restream, Joanne. The comments are not showing up here, so I don't know. They were showing up yesterday. They're not showing up today. Wait, maybe I need to just hit this thing. Ah, here we go. Now I see them on here. There's a little button there with the blue light. I'm like, yeah, I should have looked at that. Okay, so thank you for that. Joanne's got more experience with Restream than I do. So in any case, yeah, so the Making a Difference thing has a lot to do with how we just do little things every day. I think I've talked about this before. It's kind of like when you go to if you go out to the store, depending on your point of view, if you're going out and you're in a bad mood, everybody around you can tell that, right? Okay. yeah, everybody, that you should be able to, people around you should actually be able to tell that, people can tell what kind of a mood you're in. If you go in and you're just like, and you just have that look on your face and you kind of got your head down, and then people just kind of like get that vibe that they need to stay away from you, right? Whereas if you're in a good mood and you're smiling, of course, some people take that mood in the wrong way too, but then people kind of, they kind of either gravitate more towards you, or you find that it can sometimes take somebody and it can change the way that they look. Okay, that's just a really, really tiny thing, but those are the kind of things that that make more of a difference than we actually think. I think when it comes to this, when it comes to doing for other people, living authentically, okay, and we're seeing a lot about love these days in the cards as well, because there's a lot about love, it's a lot about participation, about creativity. So it's about loving yourself, first of all, as we've talked about. But then it's like when people can see that in you, when people can see that you're happy with who you are, that you're happy with what you're doing. I mean, none of us are perfectly happy all the time. I mean, let's be real. I mean, we all have crap going on in our lives that is stressful, and our moods change anyway. You know what I mean? Moods jump up and down, and they change. But but it's very much, but as we have this kind of a change that goes on in everything, we still can find kind of our center point. And I think that is where the idea of stillness comes in, where if we're just kind of aware of ourselves, if we kind of have this space where we know that this is something that we are doing, you know what I mean? That we are, where, that we sometimes, okay, like, I don't know about you guys, but I know that for myself, if I can have a morning where I wake up, I'm in a great mood and I'm doing a lot of things, and for no reason in the middle of the day, I'll just be in a bad mood. I mean, nothing has happened. Nobody's ticked me off. It's just for whatever reason. I mean, could be hormones, who the heck knows, right? We have this kind of thing, but I find that having an awareness of that, being aware of what's going on, helps me. It's like being aware that, I have, just being aware that I am in a bad mood can sometimes, alter and be like, okay, maybe this is not the time to make that phone call. Maybe this is not the time to do this. Or if I'm speaking to somebody, this is the time when I need to maybe moderate my response, because I know it might be out of proportion to the event that's going on. Because we all know when we're in those modes, everything can piss you off. I mean, it doesn't take much. It just takes one thing, and it just seems like it's the end of the world. It's this terrible thing that, no comment, just what Joanne's saying. And that's it. But I think the reason that what we're all seeing in the midst of all of this change right now is that we are in the space where we are kind of being asked to, to be true to ourselves and be authentic to ourselves. And I think a lot of us are still having this disconnect with the idea that this is something that's important to the world. So you want to recognize that everything that you do for yourself, everything that you do that makes you happy, everything that you do, just kind of out of just a sense of, because when you're feeling centered in yourself, I find that, that you're more inclined to want to give to people, or you expect less. You know what I mean? You do think, and again, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have boundaries, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't, that maybe there's some people who take advantage that you shouldn't really give to, and Suda says so true. Yeah. That I just find that if I'm in a space where I feel like I have enough, then if somebody asks me for something, then to give it to them, to share with them is no big deal. When you don't have enough for yourself, then you have a hard time with that. When you don't have enough, you feel like everybody asking you is like another burden, or it's another drain. And so I feel like we're being given this opportunity in a time when we're feeling very, very limited to re-examine what it is that we think we need to be doing, what it is that we value, and how we participate. because one of the other cards that came up for me this morning was cultivating prosperity. And so I said, okay, but cultivating prosperity to some people means like, oh, okay, well, now I need to work 3 jobs to make all this money, or I need to work 80 hours a week, or I need to some people, that's what cultivating prosperity is. And it said, no, cultivating prosperity also does not involve giving your power away to somebody else. Okay. That was the other card that came up. It said, you have to claim your own power. This has to be doing something that you are doing from your power and your space to create your abundance. If it's something where you are, because again, if you're saying, I mean, okay, you could enjoy a job that you do, and that's fine. I mean, it's not that, but sometimes we get into these kind of workaholic routines and things because they, I don't know, they make us feel like we're doing our sense of duty. Okay. They make us feel like we're being a productive member of society, regardless of what it is we're doing. We could be doing, I mean, if we're doing work that is meaningful to us, then really in a certain sense, it's almost like it's not working. In other words, the 10th house is what you contribute without working, if that makes any sense. You're not working. You are, yes, prosperity is beyond finances. Well, absolutely. And a lot of people connect prosperity and finances. In other words, if I don't have a certain amount in the bank, if I don't have this, if I don't have that, then I'm not prosperous. And so, yeah, and I think as things are shifting and changing, in terms of, I'm remembering that old 80s phrase, whoever dies with the most toys wins. I remember that was kind of a thing. And that's not really what it is. When I look at what's happening right now, kind of not just in the US, but globally, in terms of finances, in terms of what has been happening with systems. I mean, we are still seeing a lot of these same corporate systems in place with a lot of power and with a lot of things that they have, but we're definitely seeing a shift. It's certainly a shift in attitude of people. I've talked about post-COVID, how people have this attitude that we're not here to, post-COVID, we're not really here to, everything is not just about going to the office every day. When people were home, they recognized, okay, now that I'm home, I have a, I can have a life with my family. I can have time to myself. I can go for a jog in the morning before I start work, or whatever it is that people would do. These were different things that people would talk about. So yeah, you kind of have this thing where you are, where what people are valuing, and especially the younger generations, and probably people like us too. I think everybody on here, we all reach a point. Sometimes they'll call it midlife, but I don't know. I don't think what we think of as midlife, as I've talked about with developmental processes, I don't think that midlife necessarily has to start at midlife for a lot of people. I think for a lot of people, midlife is, I'm just going to shut this thing. Midlife is kind of, it's that point at which we think about everything that we've done, and then we say, did I waste my life? Or, is this the point where I want to do something different? It's almost like we spend the first half of our lives doing something inauthentic, and now it's like we're focusing on what's authentic. Alex says the 10th house as the ideal work to be done in the world, as opposed to the drudgery of the 6th house daily grind. Yes, exactly. Right. And yeah, and it's, and yes, and the fact that you mentioned that, Alex, it's when I usually read in that house. Now, when I read the 6th house as your job and I read the 10th house as your career, that's an oversimplification, but it does get to that point. 6th house is, yeah, that's Virgo. And right. And Virgo's in the South Node right now, right? What do we feel is our duty? What are our routines that we are engaged in that don't speak to us, that don't speak to our soul? And we may feel that these are things that, we have no choice but to carry them on. Now, okay, again, I don't want to make a statement about every statement in the world and everybody's circumstance and everybody's situation, because obviously there's cases where, like, for example, if somebody is a caregiver to somebody, and you can't just abandon a person, for example. There may be cases where, yeah, we're not necessarily doing, we may be doing something out of a sense of duty to somebody. But generally speaking, I think what a lot of us are being called to, I think the part of what, when I keep seeing the rune of joy, or I keep seeing things connected to joy, it's saying, you can have joy here right now if you just make the decision that you're not going to play the game the way it's been played. Okay, that you make the decision that you're going to do something for yourself. And yeah, this is very stressful because we live in a society that where the 10th house energy about our career, it ends up being about what the system expects of us. But the 10th house is really about what resources we have to give back. If you belong to a system that sucks your resources dry all the time, then what do you have to really give back? You see these things that I guess your Gen Zers and maybe even the millennials are doing, where they kind of go in and they say, they call it quiet quitting, I think they call it, where they go into their office and they do the absolute minimum every day just to collect a paycheck. It was, and I mean, this is something I think people have done for a long time. Lord knows that I've had times on my own jobs when I've done that, but especially during COVID, I remember that, because during COVID we had a situation where I had I was being paid a stipend to manage the system. They had gotten rid of the systems library, and they kind of incorporated it into my job, but I was supposed to get this boost in pay, which I was getting. But then during COVID, they said, oh, well, we don't have the money, so we really can't give you that stipend. I'm like, excuse me? Normally you would be paying a systems librarian like close to $100,000 for what I'm doing for far less than that. So at that point, anytime I got a call saying like, oh, we really ought to do this with the system and that, I said, yeah, I guess you really ought to. That was kind of it. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not getting paid to do it. Sorry, not getting paid to do it. If the system goes down, I will make a phone call. That's about as much as I'm going to do. My job was already to run reports, so I'll run reports. But no, I'm not doing anything else with the system. I'm not doing anything in terms of, if you can't be arsed to pay somebody, if it's not important to you, then it's not important to me. So, we have these cases. Now, I could have said, out of my sense of duty to my job, that maybe I should have done it. And I'm like, no. I mean, I won't let the whole system collapse, but at the same time, I'm going to do the bare minimum. But then you have to start asking yourself, when you're in situations like that, what is it that you value? Because on the one hand, and this was actually the question that I had faced at that time, was, okay, yeah, I could drive to work every day. I was made pretty clear that my department priorities were not priority for the whole library, 5-year plan or whatever it was. So my department's priorities were not, and the priorities that they had were, they weren't anything that I thought. They were things that I'm like, okay, this is just like, I feel like this is just kind of a waste of time. But in any case, so basically I was just coming in every day, and people were just coming into my office to sit down and complain about stuff. Maybe that's the reason I got into doing coaching, because I'm like, well, people want to come in and they want to complain to me a lot. So, I'm not saying people here complain to me. But you know what I mean? You just kind of got to a point where you're just kind of like, geez, I could get paid for this, right? But it's, but people would come in almost every day to talk about, and usually it was just bemoaning the fact that there was a lot of meaningful things that they wanted to do, but the university wasn't going to pay to do them. And I'm like, well, yeah. So it's almost like you have to find another way, or you have to use the time to do something that is of benefit to your career if you're gonna stay here, or make your own projects, or make do with something that you have. Work on something that you find really interesting, because if you're coming in here and thinking you're going to make some kind of a big splash with big expensive projects, you've come to the wrong place. And to be honest, most libraries are like that now. The funding just isn't there for that kind of stuff. But I reached a point where, I was having trouble with driving, as everybody here knows, talked about that 8 million times. But when you have trouble with that kind of stuff, that's when you kind of wake up and go, why am I spending a third of my day coming into an office where I just feel like, other than, signing off on invoices, and, reconciling certain bills at, a certain time every month, because I was the head of acquisitions, and attending these meetings for stuff that's probably never going to transpire. Why am I here? What am I doing? Why am I here? And that's why, for me, again, I'm only speaking for myself here, but that's why I felt like at some point I had to say, okay, the thing that's meaningful to me is, what I feel is meaningful is to, to do what I'm doing now, really. Now there's always a certain amount of work involved when you try to do something that goes off script. Okay, because it's, and I'm not going to lie to you, it was terrifying the first time that I left, and I said, oh my God, now I'm not going to have a regular paycheck, other than what I was getting from teaching, and I have to figure this out, and I think, that's probably one version of being in that empty space and having to create something, right? There's work to be done, but you just kind of have to keep plodding along with the work and trusting in the universe that you're going to get what it is that you need to keep going ahead. Because if you're on the right path, the right things will come into play when they need to. The monies that you need will show up when they need to. But it really does have to break ideas that we have about values and about work and about how we're supposed to spend our time. Now, to say this is not to suggest that everybody watching this, it's like, okay, now you all have to go out and quit your job and do something else. That's not the message here. But the message is, when we feel that our life is, when we feel like we're very, very stuck in life, when we feel, when we're trapped in a particular situation, sometimes that's when we need to look and say, okay, go back. I'll say this to people all the time who are in certain jobs where they say, I absolutely hate this. I hate my life. It's a dead end. I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, okay, let's get rid of your sense of duty and obligation here, and think about, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really want to do? I mean, because a lot of times we think, oh, well, I would like to do this, but that's just a pipe dream. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. You don't know that it's that. You've just kind of been told that certain things don't have any value. So if you're told that those things don't have value, then you're just kind of like, yeah, but if I spend time on that, then I'm being frivolous. I'm wasting time. 10th house has a lot to do with time. It's connected to Saturn. It's connected to Capricorn energy, right? And so we're always thinking, and there's always an interesting thing with that Saturnian energy, that we're on the clock and that we don't know if we're going to have enough time. We don't know if we're going to have enough time to do certain things. And so therefore, the time that we have must be productive. But what society tells us is productive is not, it's oftentimes, it's not something that resonates with our soul. I see, that's why I say, because when I get these readings that will say things like, take more time for pleasure, take more time to enjoy yourself, or in the work that you're doing, do work that you enjoy doing. If it's work you enjoy doing, then it's not work. You know what I mean? It's play. Okay. So yeah. So it's just, so again, this can exist within somebody's sphere. If you have a job that you like going to every day, even, it doesn't matter what it is, even if it's something that seems rote, or, you're not, like, again, you're not out, saving the world, or, delivering babies or whatever. I mean, even if you're not doing any kind of grand scale work, that's what the what do you value question did it for me. Yes, that's what Leela's saying. Right. And I think actually you and I had that conversation at some point, Leela. Yeah, because it was like, what is the thing when you're making a decision about such things, what is it that you value? And we have to think about the fact that if we're talking about time, how much of our time do we spend doing things that we don't value, or that we only do out of a sense of duty or obligation? There's a lot of factors that can go into something. So for example, I don't know, there just could be certain things that I enjoy, Like I enjoy writing fiction. I enjoy, some of these other things. But that doesn't necessarily, a lot of times too, I think we think that that means vocationally we have to get a job doing that exact thing that we enjoy. There's a lot of things that can go into enjoyment of your time. You could be in a space where you're just able to connect with people. Maybe you have an office full of people who are great people and you just, enjoy being together and working together. That can be another way. It doesn't have to be that you are, you can express yourself in that way, just in the way that you connect with other people. Anything that allows you to feel that kind of connection. So it doesn't always have to be that, oh, I'm interested in writing books, so I'm just going to quit my job and write fiction books all the time. It doesn't have to be that. I mean, but if that is something you enjoy doing, then you want to make that part of your life. You know what I mean? And you want to arrange, think about your time in terms of, okay, how do I make time for the things that really matter to me? Because that's the other thing too. A lot of times we have something we really enjoy, and then we sit there and we go, oh, well, I would love to do that, but I have no time, So do we prune that area of obligation? I think possibly. I mean, I think what it is that you want to think about areas where your energy is being sucked out of you, where you feel like, this is exhausting and I feel like I have to push through this every day. This is actually kind of 9 of Wands energy. It's like, what do we feel like we're pushing through? And, so if we are just moving out of the sun a little bit here, if you're just doing something every day, it's almost like taking medicine every day, like I got to hold my nose and take it because it's good for me. We look at things like that and say, if that's the way you feel, if you wake up every day thinking, God, I really, this is like you're, like, instead of feeling like fulfilled by it, you're feeling drained by it, then those are areas where you want to examine what you want to do. Like examine, like, is this something that I need to be doing? Alex says, this feels like a great topic going in the Venus retrograde shadow. What do we value and where do we find joy? And thank you. Yes, we were just talking about all the planets moving direct the other day. And now, yes, both Venus and Mercury are probably later this month going to go retrograde. So, yeah, right. So, right. And yes, Venus retrograde, a lot of times we think of Venus just in terms of relationship, although Venus can make us examine our ideas of relationship as well. It's time to do our reading, so I'm starting that. Yeah, where do we, but Venus Venus rules the 2nd house of Taurus. And that has to do not only with our personal finances, but also with luxuries and also what we value, right? So, yeah, so the meaning of value is becoming a thing. And that's where Venus retrograde would be definitely an opportunity to revisit that. So interesting, when these things come up, and I don't, like I said, I just do the readings in the morning before I start, just to kind of say, okay, where are we starting off before we do our regular reading? And that's the thing that seems to be, what we're looking at here. The ideas about value. And yeah, I'd kind of forgotten, because Venus isn't retrograde yet. I'd kind of forgotten about that, but that is actually a very good point. And yeah, it's interesting. All the planets have been, I mean, I guess the planets all do go retrograde, but I feel like there's a lot of things that, a lot of these retrogrades, especially in this time period when the astrology is about to become very, very intense, I think that these retrogrades, we are all having this this time to reevaluate things. Like we've seen that 7 of Pentacles card come up a lot, right? 7 of Pentacles is stopping and reevaluating how far I come, how much is this growing, is this futile, should I let this go and do something else? Where we do that period, those reevaluations. And yeah, it definitely seems like our ideas around what we value and what brings us joy seems to be coming to the fore right now. Now, our center card for today is traveling. Okay, this is the 8 of Wands. So traveling is, yeah, so this has to do with forward movement. It has to do with messages coming in, and it has to do with something moving at a very fast rate. We've seen a lot of, we've seen Mabel, right? We've seen the slowing down card. This has more to do with speeding up. This has to do with things that are that are starting to move fast. Now, astrologically, February is supposed to be another one of those months that is kind of in preparation for what's coming in March through September. You know, the kind of speed up that's going to be occurring. So the inner feeling of which we are unaware, we have the turning in card. Okay, so we need to we are turning in. We need to look into ourselves and not listen to those external voices. And that I think that definitely highlights what we're saying about the 10th house. A lot of times when we make the choice to do things for ourselves and move in the directions that are authentic to us, other people look at us like we're crazy, right? Like, what are you doing that for? Or you ought to be doing this thing because this is the more stable thing, and this but this is the full-time job with benefits. Why would you want to give that up? Like we get this kind of stuff from our family, from our friends, and even can be society. Society gives us these kinds of images of what it means to be successful. But the idea is you need to hear your own voice and not listen to all these other shadows around you who are not actually invested in you or anything that you value, or they're not necessarily coming at it from your perspective. A lot of times people just kind of want you to fall in line with a system, and and again, they may do that very unconsciously, not maliciously, but it's just, yeah, that's not kind of where we belong. Now, the external feeling of which we are aware, existence. Yeah, when we think something is so important, go out and look at the stars. When we think the world is out to get us, go out and look at the big picture and say, how much importance am I attaching to something? And I think this is what we're aware of. So I think this is the kind of thing that we've all, perhaps been thinking about, is what is the big picture here? So again, our advice card is the Four of Swords, the postponement card. And right underneath the traveling card, I would say that this means, what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for to live the life that we want? Now, again, it doesn't mean you're going to achieve it all in one day, but why, if we're not taking steps towards it, what are our reasons for not doing that? And we're often going to find that those reasons may center around ideas about duty, about what I'm, this isn't what I want to do, but it's what I'm obliged to do. And so the question is, how much of that is something that you're really obliged to do? Or if it's something you're obliged to do, can you do it in a different way? Like, we all have bills to pay, right? We can't just be like, oh, screw it, I'm not paying the mortgage anymore. Then I won't have a house, right? But, okay, but is there, is there a different way to do things? Or maybe I want to rearrange my situation, or maybe I want to divest myself of some things, or, or spend certain monies on certain things. You know what I mean? Like, we have to think about how we're using the resources that we have as well. But postponement says, yeah, look at all this colorful stuff in here. And I mean, and we actually, if this person represents us, then there's a little bit of this on here. But all we're seeing is all the gray. We're only, we oftentimes only see the gray, and it's like, don't postpone, like, turn your head and see what else is there. And of course, our outcome card here is the Devil card, which is the conditioning card. And we got this, I think we got this yesterday. Conditioning, yeah, we need to break out of the conditioning that tells us that we just have to be a sheep. I mean, I think that kind of fits in pretty nicely, actually, that you are not a sheep. And to say that you're a lion doesn't mean that we have to go out and, beat our chest and bellow and do all of that kind of stuff. Conditioning may have to do with, the way in which we, it's just the way in which we want to shine and be the person that we are. If we think of Leo as being, Leo energy, really. I mean, what is Leo? Leo is represented by the sun. Leo is represented by the strength card. It has to do with the way in which we show our own strength and build our own strength too. Because a lot of times, again, the more that we dedicate our life energy to something that is just sucking us dry, the less strength we have. We become weak, and we become kind of dependent on things that are not authentic to us. So I'm just going to pull one more, and then we'll end the live stream for today. It was kind of off to a weird start, and I feel like we're kind of in a little bit more of a groove now that we've gotten rid of some of the. Yes, I love that card. Yes, yes, exactly, and yeah. So hopefully tomorrow's will be a little bit less bumpy at the start than this one. I'll have to check into some things, but anyway, our card is emerging into grace. Okay, and I will tell you what that means. Okay. Universe wants you to know, in the stillness of retreat, the gifts of spirit will emerge at your feet. I guess that rhymes, doesn't it? In gratitude and thankfulness, an opening into the deepest spiritual realm is occurring. Simply be ready and open as waves of sacred love will pour into your heart. Grace is growing within you so that more and more you serve as a safe sanctuary for others. Well, that's interesting, because it's almost the idea that yeah, this is a concept I've seen in different places, that the idea that what we could call grace is something that flows as a current. It's not something we have any control over, but when it flows into us, it also kind of is almost like a river. It kind of flows out of us too. And when we're in that state or in that space, if we're open to receiving that, then that also that really it's not just about us. It like illuminates what's around us too. So that's interesting. So I think it's saying just being open to the gifts that, whether you think of them as gifts from God, whether you think of them as gifts from the universe, however you want to think about it, being open to receiving, because it's almost like we could be receiving all of these things, but we don't want to be in this space where we're just like, oh, I can't. I'm too busy. I'm too busy with my routine to pay attention to any of that. That postponement card. I'm not looking over there, where the abundance is or where my joy might be. I'm just looking at either what I don't have or what I feel I'm obliged to do. So anyway, just some thoughts for today. Thank you guys for joining me here on YouTube. This is a new experience. I'm sure we will get used to this just like everything else. And I will see about what I might want to do about moderation. Today it wasn't too bad. I mean, I just had a couple people who I just was like, okay, I just need to get rid of these people. But but generally speaking, it's hopefully that won't be an issue as we are all going forward. So thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Thanks. Have a great day. And yeah, and if I can get things going on Insta, I will try, but for now, I'm just going to do it here and I will let you know. Okay. So everybody have a great, what is today? Sunday. And I will see all of you tomorrow morning. So take care.